All right, the plans are already being exposed.
Their Indiana Fever roster, because they had so many injuries. They really did a great job of staying engaged with their season. I can really only imagine for a player like Caitlin, you come off your college season, epic. You go straight to your WNBA season. You finish a first teamer. You have this long off season where you probably can't wait to get back on the court.
We already know how Team USA was planning to build this thing up around Paige Bueckers being the point guard, a blasphemous idea.
Only to have like a couple of injuries, sideliner at the ins and the outs, and then eventually being completely out. That is a challenge for a player.
Caitlin Clark officially arrives in North Carolina for Team USA camp. More importantly, we got Sue Bird talking about.
It's just a great opportunity to get their first feel, to get their first taste. But none have had a ton of USA basketball experience.
That hesitation, right there, is not someone assembling their thoughts. That is someone carefully picking words to avoid conveying what everyone already knows. Sue Bird was asked directly about Caitlin Clark's performance coming back from injury. And instead of breaking down her play, she changed the focus to staying engaged from the sidelines. That kind of flip always raises eyebrows. That moment's significant because of what is really going on at Team USA camp right now. Caitlin Clark just turned up in North Carolina for what is meant to be the early build-up to her first major international race. On paper, this should be a showcase moment. In truth, the structure around her has individuals quietly questioning the direction of the whole setup. Subbird, who is overseeing everything as the general manager, shared details that just contributed to the side eye this scenario was already getting. The message was plain. The veterans are expected to set the tone. Not just the coaches, but the experienced players.
It's just a great opportunity to get their first feel, to get their first taste. And the other beautiful part about USA basketball, this is when the veterans really come alive, right? This is when they can be a huge part of setting that tone, not just the coaches. But those vets, they've been there, they know what it's like. And with the way that they act, maybe with the way that they can be vocal.
The ones who have been around, who know the system, who are supposed to show the younger group how to move, how to lead, and how to carry themselves in this milieu. Now let's slow down and look at who those veterans actually are in this camp. Paige Bueckers is there. Paige, who has not played a single WNBA game yet, is reportedly being lined up as a point guard option for Team USA. That is not rumor talk. That is what has been circulating heading into camp. And suddenly, the topic turns about veterans educating young players and setting culture. Here is where it gets awkward. Caitlin Clark has completed up her debut season as a first-team All-WNBA selection. She led the league in assists at 8 per game. She set a single-season assist record with 337 total. She managed an offense that turned the Indiana Fever from a lottery team into a playoff contender. Now she walks into a Team USA setting where the messaging centers on veterans teaching youth, while Paige Bueckers is being framed as a floor general. The math on that does not sit properly. The entire thing feels built to tone her down instead of letting her fully cook. And that is where this situation starts getting uncomfortable fast. This gets much more interesting as Bird reveals how Stephanie White landed on this coaching staff.
What went into how you selected Kara's assistants?
Yeah, Kara Lawson, the head coach of Duke. They're terrible, by the way. How did you come to the conclusion of getting the assistants in Stephanie White?
Her statement sounds tidy on the surface, but the specifics underneath raise more questions than answers. Stephanie White is named as a court coach at this camp. Not a full assistant yet, but present during this December training window.
I think it's Nate, it's Natalie Nakase, and Stephanie White.
So they're technically court coaches. I'm getting used to all the lingo also. And it's really, the assistants don't get picked or officially chosen until much closer to the World Cup.
Oh, so they just are they just here for camp? I'm hoping Stephanie White is only here for camp. I hope she's not going to be around for the real thing. Keep talking, Sue. Keep talking.
So there's a lot of time, a lot of buildup. Some of it is, if you look at past coaching staffs, there's been a mix of WNBA and college. Obviously, this camp is in December. you're not going to get college coaches. That's like likely not going to happen.
According to Sue Bird, the idea was to blend WNBA and collegiate coaches. The problem was timing. Since this camp happens in December, college coaches were unavailable due of the season. So they leaned into what she described as a newer wave of WNBA coaches. The issue is that Stephanie White is not new at all. She coached the Indiana Fever as a head coach back in 2015 and 2016. Spent years as an assistant with the Connecticut Sun and just returned to Indiana as head coach this past season. That Connecticut Sun link is part of the UConn pipeline, and that is where people start shifting in their seats. Stephanie White recently coached Caitlin Clark for one season with the Fever. That season concluded with Caitlin dealing with various problems, including a knee issue that left her inactive for weeks. By the end of the year, doubts were already flying around regarding how her workload was handled by the Fever staff. Despite having the league's most dangerous playmaker, the offense often looked out of sync. Now, less than 2 months after that season wrapped, Stephanie White is suddenly part of Team USA, in a position where she can influence how Caitlin Clark is used again in a new system.
So luckily we're able to tap into like what is this like newer crop with Nate and Natalie of WNBA coaches. Of course, Steph's been in the WNBA for a while, but none have had a ton of USA basketball experience. So it's wonderful to get them in. We had a coaches meeting today, and just kind of watching everybody come together and learn, you got to learn the FIBA rules. You got to learn, what it's about, but also being able to showcase themselves as assistants, obviously.
That overlap is hard to ignore. Listen attentively to how Sue Bird frames Caitlin's injury scenario. The focuses on how painful it was mentally to sit out and how great it was that she stayed engaged in with the squad. That portion is fair, but what is missing is just as loud. There is no discussion of how the injuries happened. No mention of the substantial minutes she logged under Stephanie White. No breakdown of how her recovery timeframe was managed. Caitlin gets praised for battling through it mentally, while the coaching context around those injuries discreetly gets pushed to the side. The Indiana Fever ran Caitlin Clark hard last season, giving her around 35 minutes per game. That was the second greatest workload in the league for a rookie, and it came right after a collegiate season, where she played 39 games for Iowa. Add it all, and that is more than 80 high-level games in one calendar year nonstop. Her body finally gave out in September, and now the same coach who oversaw that usage is helping determine her role for international play. That alone should make people pause. But this is when the concern really sharpens. Subbird made it clear that these court coach roles are not locked up. The official assistant coaching roles will not be finalized until much closer to the World Cup. That means what is happening right now in Durham is more than just a training camp. Stephanie White is essentially in tryout mode. This is an audition. She is there to show she deserves a permanent spot on this crew. And the way a coach exhibits value in a setting like this is easy. Show results. Show control. Show that you can plug players into a system and have it operate rapidly. That involves becoming essential to the head coach's vision. Cara Lawson is running the show. She played at Tennessee, not UConn, therefore she sits outside that specific pipeline. Still, she needs core coaches she can trust. She needs personnel who will carry out her system without conflict. If Stephanie White wants one of those official assistant jobs, she has to stand out right now. So, the true question becomes uncomfortable. Does establishing worth mean unleashing Caitlin Clark's full skill set, or does it mean integrating her into a structure that benefits players Stephanie White already has close ties to? Those relationships matter. Stephanie White played at Purdue, but she spent the last decade deeply connected to the UConn coaching ecosystem. That background does not disappear overnight. When those ties exist, they influence decisions, rotations, and positions. And since Caitlin Clark's minutes, health, and usage are already part of the discourse, every choice taken at this camp bears extra weight. Stephanie White worked 5 full years as an assistant under Curt Miller in Connecticut. That is 5 years of recruiting trips, coaching clinics, USA basketball events, and nonstop networking related directly to the UConn program. 5 years of creating trust with players, moving through that system, learning how they play, how they think, and how they become positioned for the next level. Now, one of those players, Paige Bueckers, is at the same camp and is supposedly being developed as a point guard alternative for international competition. This is where Subird's answer about Guju Watkins suddenly matters, even though she did not finish the notion. The question was simple. Why bring Guju to camp while she is still healing and cannot fully participate in drills? That is a fair question, and the reasons behind it says a lot. The actual answer is exposure. USA Basketball wants specific young players around the program early. They want them to see how things run, understand the culture, and feel connected to international play before they are really ready. From a development standpoint, that logic tracks, but it also pulls back the curtain on how roster construction truly works. This is not only about present performance. It is about future connections. It is about getting guys into the system early before they have demonstrated anything at the professional level. When you look at who gets those early invites, who gets access to these camps, and who gets developmental priority, a pattern starts to build. Paige Bueckers has not played a single WNBA game, yet she is in camp. Guju Watkins is still in college and recovering, however she is in camp. Meanwhile, athletes who recently completed strong WNBA seasons and proven they can perform against pros are sitting at home watching this from the outside and wondering how these decisions are being made. Now, circle back to the commencement of this whole situation. Caitlin Clark arrives in North Carolina. Cameras follow her. The energy is high. This should be a moment celebrating one of the most electric young players in the league stepping into the international picture. Instead, the focus flips very quickly. The talk turns to coaching structures, veteran leadership, and how Paige Bueckers fits into the point guard rotation. The skepticism is not coming from nowhere. More people are picking up on the same thing. This arrangement feels weird. The UCONN pipeline, as many are calling it, appears to be braided through every layer of this camp. Stephanie White staying close to Caitlin Clark does not feel like easy instruction to some onlookers. To them, it feels like monitoring, positioning, and control all happening in plain sight. When you stand back and look at everything set out, this stops being about one awkward answer, one coaching hire, or one training camp decision. This is about how power moves quietly alter the future long before the public ever sees the repercussions. Caitlin Clark did not walk into this moment as a project or a mystery. She entered as a proven force, someone who already changed the balance of a league in a single season. Yet, the environment around her feels less like a launch pad and more like a pressure test. The language emanating from the top keeps circling the same themes. Culture, experience leadership, development. None of those ideas are wrong on their own. But when they are repeated while production gets brushed aside, people start questioning why. The numbers are already there. The impact is already documented. Still, the conversation keeps turning away from maximizing what Caitlin does best and toward fitting her into something that existed before she even arrived. That is where the greater picture comes into focus. USA Basketball is not just assembling teams for today. It is laying tracks for years down the road. Camps like these are about access, familiarity, and early trust. Players that are brought in young, even when they cannot fully participate, are being incorporated into a long-term vision. Those ties matter later when decisions get tight and spots get scarce. Meanwhile, players who have already proven themselves at the professional level are left on the outside looking in. That contrast is what fans are reacting to. It is not jealousy. It is not bias. It is confusion regarding priorities. When production does not guarantee opportunity, the method deserves scrutiny. Caitlin Clark's presence has made that scrutiny unavoidable. Every move surrounding her is emphasized because she represents a shift in the game. She brings eyes, attention, and expectations that cannot be managed discreetly. Trying to guide that type of talent without fully unleashing it produces tension. And that tension is what people are feeling right now. This is why the story refuses to settle. It tackles coaching influence, institutional pipelines, and how early ties may steer outcomes before fans really realize it is happening. None of this requires conspiracy to be real. It merely requires systems that promote familiarity over performance and comfort over interruption. And disruption is exactly what Caitlin Clark brings. The next phase will tell the truth. Who gets empowered? Who gets adjusted? Who is allowed to run free? And who is asked to fit a mold? Those answers will not come from press conferences. They will show up in rotations, duties, and trust when the stakes mount. That is why paying attention now matters. This is not about tearing anything down. It is about understanding how the game, behind the game, is played. If you want sharp breakdowns, actual information, and coverage that does not dodge uncomfortable angles, Courtside Leaks is built for moments like this. This is where patterns get recorded, judgments get examined, and the noise is filtered out. Stay connected. Follow Courtside Leaks, since the following moves will not just define a roster. They will reveal exactly how power is exerted when the lights are brightest. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, write a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.